بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد Inshallah ta'ala, tonight we'll start with the intro, muqaddimah, introduction to the book Minhaaj Saalikeen في وتوضيح الفقه في الدين. منهج السالكين للعلامة الشيخ عبد الرحمن بن ناصر السعدي رحمه الله. And tonight we won't start the book, but it's an introduction to what we're going to study in the book, which is a book of fiqh, on the science of fiqh. And before we can go into the book, it has to be some type of preparation of what we're going to be learning about. And for this reason, the ulama, they have in many different ways put together different programs, for lack of better words, to make things easier for the person learning to get to the ultimate goal of attaining the knowledge. From the ways, one of the things they did is for when a person enters into beginning the study of knowledge, they have something called Mabadi al-Ashra. And there's basically 10 things that you should know about the thing that you get ready to study. Whatever it is. If it's Arabic language, if it's hadith, if it's fiqh, if it's usul al-fiqh, tafsir, whatever you get ready to study, this same idea can be used for any of them. You should know these 10 things about the subject that you get ready to study. And a lot of times it's put in maybe 2 or 3 lines of poetry, like 2 lines of poetry mentions each thing. What I did was, took a couple of things from those 10 that I thought was most important for us to go over. So we won't do all 10, okay? The first thing they mention is al-had, which is the definition. The definition of the thing you're going to study. What are you going to study? So if we say, for example, this class is on fiqh, we need to know what is fiqh. The first question has to be, what is fiqh? To anybody, when a person, why do you hear fiqh, the word fiqh, what does it mean to you? Anybody? Huh? When you hear fiqh, what do you understand from it? What do you think about? What pops in your head when you hear fiqh? We're going to study fiqh. Yeah. 2 things.
The first thing is from how it's commonly used from our language, jurisprudence.
Jurisprudence.
And then the other
like
one, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ said that when you read the Wahid, how do you fiqh with the deen? Understanding.
Understanding.
And Abdul Wahid was a class and he said fiqh is how a person understands himself and how he applies it to the religion.
MashaAllah. Jurisprudence, which is
Sharia.
Sharia. Like. Alright. Like. Huh? You sure? الفقه؟ طيب ايش هو؟ ايوه الفقه. الفقه في الدين. Okay. Fiqh in religion. Like, what does that mean? Understanding. Like, huh? A way to accomplish a goal. Like, now, if we just moved on like that, everybody got a different definition. Right? For this reason, the ulama in the beginning of the chapters, they come with a definition. So we all on the same page. We can't talk about something if you talk and you think it's one thing and I think it's another thing. It's a dead argument. Right? So they come with two definitions. One in the language, lugatan, then they come with istilahan. What does it mean in the Arabic language? And that's what the Shakur said, understanding. And they say that al-fiqh lugatan al-ilmu bil-shay wal-fahmu lahu. To have knowledge of something, to understand it. As mentioned in the Quran in Surah Hud, وَقَالُوا يَا شُعَيْبُ مَا نَفْقَهُ كَثِيرًا مِمَّا تَقُولُ. They say, Ya Shu'aib. They said to the Prophet Shu'aib, we don't understand most of what you're saying. We don't understand what you're saying. Ibn Kathir said, rahimahullah, in the tafsir, he said, مَا نَفْهَمْ. We don't understand. So it could mean understanding. But if we come and we say, this book is about understanding. This is a book of fiqh. Yani, about understanding. We want to study understanding. That makes sense? We want to study understanding. It doesn't make sense. So the fiqh that we're talking about is not the meaning of, and what it means in the language. Understanding, right? So now the other man come with another definition where they say istilahan, which is a different definition. It's connected to the language, but it's more specific to what we're going to talk about. And when they make these definitions, because you might open up one book and see a definition from a sheikh, open up another book, it's another definition. There's nothing written in stone with one definition. These definitions, they try to make the definition include everything we're going to study, and in the same time the definition excludes anything we're not studying. Right? Everything we want to study, they try to put in one definition. And at the same time, in that same definition, they try to remove anything that's not connected to what we want to study. They call it jami'un mani'un. It's comprehensive of everything we're going to study, and at the same time, it's mani'un. It removes anything we're not studying. This is what they try to do with definitions. So a lot of times, the definitions are not one. They're close, but this one put an extra word in the definition. This one took out a word from the definition. They're arguing about definitions, sometimes not arguing, but debating about definitions. You said this, and when you say that, it means this. And that's not the truth. It really should have said this like that. There's nothing etched in stone, okay, as far as definitions. One of the famous definitions for al-fiqh is al-ilmu bil-ahkam al-shar'iyya al-amaliyya min adillatiha al-tafsiliyya bil-istidlal. And we go piece by piece to show you how much time and how careful they are with choosing these words in order to make it comprehensive of everything in the subject. So the first thing, it says al-ilm bil-ahkam al-shar'iyya. So we're talking about knowledge, the rulings pertaining to the Sharia, specifically. Rulings pertaining to the Sharia specifically. Okay? So at the same time now it's inclusive of rulings containing the Sharia, and we're not talking about rulings outside of the Sharia. Okay? The second thing he says, al-amaliyya. أي الأحكام الشرعية المتعلقة بما يصدر عن المكلف من two things, عبادات ومعاملات, worship and dealings. Fiqh has to do with worship, like what? What's a form of worship? Salat, zakat, siyam, hajj, huh? Som, what else? We got the pillars. Som Ramadan, what else? Another tayyib. Yeah. Huh? I can't hear you. Hajj, yeah, Hajj. What else? Huh? Any form of ibadah. All types of ibadah, whether it's with the body, and sadaqah, any form of ibadah enters in the fiqh. The second thing is mu'amalat, which are different dealings. Different types of dealings. Could be a contract, usually contracts. buying and selling. What else? Marriage, divorce, punishments, right? Qada. Only. So the definition is inclusive of what fiqh, what is included in fiqh, and it removes what is not included in fiqh. So basically, based on this, we're not talking about aqidah. There's no aqidah. It's not a book of aqidah. Not just this book. The books of fiqh are not books of aqidah. Some issues of fiqh are entered into the chapter of aqidah, like Masjid Taubah, wiping over the socks. But generally, these books are not aqidah books, and they're not books of adab. There's only two things: ibadat, worship, and muamalat. Different dealings and transactions, whether it's business, whether it's marriage. Alright? That's amaliyah. It says, waladilla at-tafsiliyah. The dalil used for these rulings, is something permissible, is it impermissible, is it sunnah? Right? It says these, and it gives an example. هي الأدلة الجزئية التي يتعلق كل دليل منها بمسألة. طيب. Each issue is possible that there's a dalil, a general, maybe a general ayah, maybe for example the ayah is general, and you can use this ayah as a dalil for a specific thing. But these issues also have a specific dalil that are used for that issue. For example, where Allah says, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا إِنَّهُ كَانَ فَاحِشًا وَسَاءَ سَبِيلًا. This is a dalil tafsili for zina. This is a specific dalil for the issue of zina. You can't take this ayah and say, based on this ayah, interest is impermissible. Or based on this ayah, we can't eat pork. Right? This ayah is specific to the issue of zina, fornication. Clear? Sometimes there's general texts, whether it's an ayah or a hadith, that might cover more than one issue. Right? Sometimes, but not all the time. Okay, and these issues come with specific dalil, a specific dalil, or a specific dealing with a specific issue. The issue itself has a specific dalil that's used for it. Clear? You with me? What's not clear? Huh? Question? Yeah.
What's one that's general?
General. For example, if a person says, I won't use this. I'll say, for example, backbiting. Right? There's ayah in the Quran about backbiting. The hadith specific about backbiting. But a brother comes and he says, he doesn't use the ayah or the specific hadith about backbiting. He comes and says a hadith that's general. Actually, you should want for your brother what you want for yourself. None of you believe until you want for your brother what you want for yourself. You want somebody to backbite you? No, I want nobody to backbite you. That generally is inclusive. But there's more specific that you could have used. Right? That specific one is for, as it says here, mas'ala mu'ayyana. It's for a specific issue. You with me? Like that. Sometimes you can use a general, but you can't take them and just allocate it anywhere. It depends on the situation. Okay? At the end of the definition, he says, bil-istidlal. Bil-istidlal. Istidlal is basically the way the ulama, they extract the ruling from the ayah. And there's different ways they do it. Some ways they agree on, some ways they don't agree on. Some ways are agreed upon, some of them aren't. Some ways they differ. That's why we find the same ayah from two different sheikhs with two different rulings. Because the way this sheikh looks at it, he comes out, when he's finished with all of the dalil in front of him, he comes out and he says, this action is sunnah. The other sheikh, he looks at it, and when he's finished all of the dalils in front of him, he says, no, this action is wajib. It's obligatory. And they're looking at the same thing, but it's based on how they look at it. Tariq another fil adillah. How they look at the dalil. And there's a lot of things that go into that. This is the definition of fiqh. All inclusive of that. So what they do is they try to remove all of the stuff that's not inclusive in what you're going to study. Okay? Which, as we said, it removes aqidah and it removes akhlaq. We're not talking about adab. We're not talking about a person's belief system. So, if a person studies fiqh, or a person is, for example, he's Hanbali, or he's Maliki, or he's Shafi'i, does that have anything to do with his aqidah? Huh? Not from the definition. Huh? He's Hanbali. Does that mean his aqidah is something else, or what? What does that mean? Huh?
It follows the different schools of thought of the four imams. Like the school of thought of Imam. He might follow his school of thought. You know what I mean?
What about his aqidah though? Does that have anything to do with his aqidah? Is there a connection between his when he studies and fiqh his aqidah?
All of them had the Sahih aqidah. All four imams had the correct aqidah.
That's correct. Yes.
You know what I mean?
They were Hanafi and fiqh. They had a different creed.
The Mu'tazila
were Hanafi and fiqh. So they followed the fiqh, but the creed wasn't.
But the creed was Tayyib. So Hanafis are Mu'tazili, or the Mu'tazili are Hanafis? The Mu'tazili, that's general, that's real, you can't, not all of them, you can't say all of them, but you know. Point being, yeah. It doesn't fit. According to this definition, and this is one of the more famous definitions, fiqh has nothing to do with the aqidah. Is it possible that a Hanafi is Mu'tazili? It's possible. It's possible that a Maliki is a Sufi. It's possible that a Maliki is anything. A Hanbali could be a Kharij. It's possible. It doesn't mean that because he is Shafi'i that he is this in Aqidah. It doesn't mean with full conviction. Is it possible? Mumkin, maybe. Yeah. When it's time to pray, he prays a certain way. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, because we're not talking about what he believes. Exactly. From the definition, what he believes has nothing to do with it.
Is he going to agree with what he based off that fiqh?
Exactly. Which means
when it's time to make a contract, same thing.
Exactly.
But when it's time to believe something, it could be different.
When it's time to believe something, we might believe the same thing. When we start talking about the Arkan and Imam Billah, he said, yo, he prayed, I don't know how he praying like that, and he's raising his hand. But when you sit down and talk about Aqidah, y'all believe the same thing. Possibly. You can sit down and talk about Aqidah, maybe he might be somewhere that's possible. It doesn't necessitate that because he's Shafi or Hanafi or Maliki or Hanbali, it doesn't necessitate that because he follows that madhab, that his Aqidah, we say, is shot out. It's not a necessity. Is it possible? It's possible.
So, just for clarification, when an individual, when we're talking about fiqh in general, in regards to how it's applied, whether it's a school or an individual, it always deals with the two things, but we add that or not on that.
Exactly.
In general.
In general, exactly.
What about when they go with the madhab over the clear proofs?
Oh man, we're going to get into that. When they go with the madhab over the clear proof. We're going to get to that, inshallah. You had a question, Akhi? What's your name? Did you have a question? Alright. Now, another thing that they mentioned, those 10 things that we said in the beginning, that the ulama put together as an introduction to whatever you're going to study. No. I only took a couple of them. We're not going to do all 10. I only took a couple of them. Thamaratul ilm. What is the benefit of that knowledge? If we know that fiqh is dealing with worship and, let's say, transactions or dealings, that could be business, could be marriage, could be a lot of different transactions. What is the benefit of knowing? What is the benefit of the knowledge itself?
Worship your Lord correctly.
So you can worship your Lord correctly.
And protect yourself from falling into master.
And protect yourself from falling into disobedience. Mumtaz. They say معرفة الحكم المتعلق بفعل المكلف. To know, the benefit of knowing this information here is that now you know the ruling connected to the action of the person, the mukallaf. And I'm sorry, I missed the important word up here in the definition of fiqh. And he mentioned it here again, the mukallaf. These rulings, halal, haram, sunnah, we're talking about the actions of a person who is mukallaf. Anybody know what mukallaf is? What is mukallaf? Huh?
Age responsibility.
Age of responsibility, age of discernment. Anybody else? Nafis. Nafis. Nafis.
No, the Mukallaf is the one who reaches the age of the rules.
Mm.
The age of maturity as well as he becomes responsible for his sin. Meaning that the obligation of Allah Ta'ala is now defined.
G. Huh? Everybody agree? Like, huh? When they say mukallaf, two things. That's one of them. They reach that certain age. But the second one is they have to have sanity. They can be of age, but if they're insane, exactly, right? So they put that also in the definition for fiqh بالمكلف. It's والمقصود. It says والمقصود بالمكلف الإنسان بالغ, which is the age, عاقل. He's of age and he has sanity. He has to have both. If he's of age but he's crazy, or if he's crazy, or if he's the opposite, he's not of age yet but he has sound mind, he hasn't reached the age yet, right? Therefore, a person who's crazy doesn't enter, and the little boy doesn't enter until a lot of the rulings, generally. Okay? So like he said, the benefit is that you know those rulings and how to worship Allah upon clarity. And it's clear. And you know why you're doing something. Okay? And if you connect it to the ayah, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, that we have not created you, the jinn and mankind, except for worship. And if this is dealing with worship, then it's only right that you should know that knowledge to some extent. Clear? Tayyib. The next, from those 10 things that the ulama put together, fadluhu. What is the virtue of that knowledge? Why is that knowledge beneficial? Outside of that, what makes that knowledge special?
So it could be put in action.
So it can be put in action.
So you can put the knowledge in action. Implement the knowledge.
Implement it. Gee.
Because we know that this knowledge is the knowledge that will ensure that will either protect us from being entered into the hellfire or entered into Jannah.
Gee.
That's why the knowledge is very important, because we need it for the afterlife.
Like, generally, all of the hadith that you can think about, praising, that praise where the Prophet ﷺ raised, and he praised seeking knowledge. فَمَنْ سَلَكَ طَرِيقًا يَلْتَمِسُ فِيهِ عِلْمًا سَهَلَ اللَّهُ لَهُ بِهِ طَرِيقًا إِلَى الْجَنَّةِ. Right? Whoever treads that path seeking knowledge, and this is from it, whoever treads that path seeking knowledge, then Allah will make a path for him to Jannah easy, to paradise easy for him. There's a lot of general hadith and ayat about the praise of seeking knowledge. There's a specific hadith, not only for this fiqh, it also encompasses aqidah, but there are many hadith praising the fact of learning, and ayat. I think Ali did that maybe a couple days ago. The whole talk about that, knowledge and its virtue. But the Prophet ﷺ, there's another hadith the Prophet ﷺ saying, you mentioned it earlier. مَنْ يُرِدِ اللَّهُ بِهِ خَيْرًا يُفَقِّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. That whoever Allah wants good for, He gives him understanding, fiqh, of the religion. In the hadith, in the explanation of this hadith, it says, فَفِيهِ أَنَّ مَنْ تَفَقَّهَ فِي الدِّينِ فَقَدْ أَرَادَ اللَّهُ بِهِ خَيْرًا. That whoever gains that understanding of the religion, it's clear from the hadith that Allah wanted good for that person. Just from the hadith itself, it shows that whoever gains understanding of the religion, that Allah wanted good for that person. Just on the zahir, the apparency of the hadith. It says, حيث وفقه للفقه والفهم والعلم الصحيح في علم الديانة. How? Because Allah gave that person tawfiq. He gave him success, or He allowed that person to reach some knowledge and understanding of the religion. And it shows that Allah wanted good for the person. Right? ويدل ذلك على أن الفقه في الدين من أشرف العلوم. The hadith also shows that having knowledge, having understanding of religion is from the most precious or noble sciences of the deen. All based on the one hadith. Allah wants khair for that person. He says, وَذَلِكَ لِأَنَّهُ يَعْمَلُ عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ. That's because why the person, when he learns these rulings and stuff like that, and the dalil that goes with it, when he does an action, he knows why he did it. He knows why he says Bismillah before wudu. He knows why he starts with the right. He knows why he raises his hands to the shoulders or the ear in the takbir, in the salat. He knows why he does all of these things. Okay? He says also he's carrying, once he learns these things, he's carrying a serious knowledge. Knowledge of the deen of Islam, knowledge of the Sharia. He's carrying this. Yahmin. Ilm al-Sharif, a noble knowledge. He's carrying something heavy. And also he guides people with the knowledge. He guides people with the knowledge, and he shows them وَيَدُلُّهُمْ عَلَى مَا يَحْتَاجُونَ إِلَيْهِ فِي أُمُورِ الدِّينِ. And he shows them and he helps the people and teaches them what they need to establish their religion, to establish their ibadah. This all comes under the virtue of the science of fiqh. Now, alhamdulillah, sneeze. When you talk about fiqh, and I think he mentioned it earlier, the four madhabs, right? Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Malik, and Imam Ahmed, rahimahumullah. Like, because this book, for the most part, is on the madhab of Imam Ahmed. Imam Ahmed, rahimahullah, Hanbali. Imam Sa'dee, Hanbali, Al-Hanbali. Anybody that you talk about, that you can think of in Saudiya, they study Hanbali fiqh. Name them. Anybody pops in your head. It's the curriculum, not this book. Hanbali fiqh is the curriculum in the middle school, in what's before me? Elementary, middle school, high school, and university. It's the official madhab of the country. The official madhab of the country, they're Hanbali. Does that mean that they follow every single thing? No, not necessarily. It doesn't mean that. But before we go into there, we gotta know what is a madhab. Yeah.
It's a way.
Jade.
A madhab is a way how it's like a method how they would do the thing, you know, how they would build, but they would do this stuff according to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They would, you know,
it's a way. Sorry.
The way that the Quraa ruling from the two texts.
Yeah. How they did. How they would
you get different proofs.
He cleared up.
Sorry.
It defines a methodology one adopts.
The methodology again?
That one adopts.
The methodology that one adopts.
Yeah, which covers like fiqh and full
Hey.
A way that I found out how to understand it better, Shaykh al-Islam alhamdulillah, is the Waqt of Islam, when he mentioned, he said, whoever thinks the way of the kuffar, if they find that way, so like I'm gonna piggyback off the brother when he mentioned in general a method is adopting a specific way or method or something.
Adopting a way. Yeah.
A school of thought built upon proofs and everything.
A school of thought built upon proofs and everything. MashaAllah.
That's clear.
طيب. A madhab is a way in the Arabic language, lugatan, a tariqa. when we say he follows the madhab of Imam Ahmed or Shafi'i or Imam Malik, manahij fi fahm al-sharia, the different ways that they understand the sharia. How do they understand the text, like we said before? When they look at how, what are the steps they go through? Like it says, وَأَسَالِيبْ فِي تَفْسِيرِ نُصُوصِهَا. In the different ways they explain the text in front of them. It's not all agreed on. It's different ways they do it. Sometimes they agree, and sometimes they don't agree. Therefore, you come out with different rulings on the same text from two different scholars. Does that mean that the scholar that said it's permissible, for example, picture taking? Is picture taking? Yeah.
He still gets some hajjah for the rise of his ruling of books and everything.
MashaAllah.
Don't use
The
it.
mujtahid. He gets the mujtahid. Like, the sheikh says, one says pictures are haram, taking pictures are haram. The other one says it's not. Taking pictures with a camera is not haram. Both ulama that we know and love. Huh? Do we say one is shot out now? He said it's permissible, so he shot out based on that?